Hey everybody, it's Theo Vaughn here, and I got a question. When it comes to soda, are you really picking a zero sugar cola that you actually prefer, or are you just settling for what you've always had? That's the question. And I'll say this, when it comes to taste, I find that nothing beats Pepsi Zero Sugar. But you don't just have to take my word for it. That would be ridiculous. Pepsi has been doing blind taste tests for years. No labels, no brand names, just taste. And last year, they brought back the Pepsi Challenge, and the results were clear. 66% of people agreed and said that Pepsi Zero Sugar tastes better than Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. In fact, Pepsi Zero Sugar won in every market they tested. So if you're grabbing a zero sugar soda, go with the one people keep choosing when taste is the only thing that matters. Go out and try Pepsi Zero Sugar today. Let your taste decide.
I'm using the podcast voice setting today, Keith, on this this thing that does the sound. I can't remember what it's called. I don't know how I'm supposed to know what these things are called, but you know what I mean. See, that's the thing about making videos on YouTube and doing podcasts. I'm entirely self-taught. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing, and I'm basically making up 90% of what I'm doing as I go along, and hopefully it will sort of sound good, maybe at some point.
Well, you know what? It's working, man. It's working.
Sort of, I guess. Hopefully we're eventually getting there. Oh yeah, by the way, hey you and welcome. My name is Mike, and you're listening to this whole episode of the That Chapter podcast. Keith, you probably, well, I was actually saying Keith as in introducing you.
Oh, okay.
But thanks for your enthusiasm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Folks, he's already introduced himself. Well done, Keith. Well done on that one.
True pro.
Dirty Keith. If you interrupt me again, you are off the podcast.
You know that's not the truth.
I know. I actually do enjoy doing this too much. Cut that, by the way. I don't want fans to know that I actually do enjoy doing the podcast with you, or that I enjoy spending any time with you at all.
Oh, I was just saying that I'm not going to stop interrupting.
I will kill you. So yeah, what's going on with you, big dog? How's your haunted house and all the mad shit that goes on in Casa del Keith?
Casa del Keys. Not much going on in the house. I guess mainly because I haven't really been there that much.
Where are you?
I was at a pub quiz
What's
there the weekend.
His name?
What? Mr. Pub. We're at a pub quiz there the weekend.
You're at a pub quiz.
Yeah.
You saucy dog.
And we nailed it. We won. We won the quiz.
Wow, Keith. Your life is too intense. You should tell the podcasters or the podcast listeners to sit down when you tell these stories. So tell us more. What were the questions?
It was an amazing question. So, no, I didn't get this question. I was mainly there for the drink and see how drunk I could get. But, so this
How many pints can Keith drink?
I never won a free round, so I don't remember the rest of the night. But I was told it was great. But Lauren, who was on our team, she got this amazing answer. So nobody else got it in the whole bar. So I was very impressed. So I just kind of want to put it out there, see who else who's listening may be able to get it. I'll say the answer on next week's podcast.
So you're going to pose the listeners a question. Yeah. And is this a trick question? Is this a riddle? Or?
So it's not a trick question. Based what it is. So you need to find the link between these songs. So what do these songs have in common? So there's Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, Baba O'Reilly by The Who, Bohemian Rhapsody, Queen, David Bowie, Space Oddity, and Blur, Song 2. So you have to find there is a common link between all these songs.
I've never heard this question before. Can I give the answer if I know it?
If you know it, yeah.
So, wait, I mean, is this one of those things where it's like they're all about the theme of some fucking bullshit, or is there an actual definitive link between all of them?
There is a definitive link between all of them.
They're all about the same person. They're all written by the same person. They're all sung by the same person?
No.
Freddie Mercury is all of these people, or none of them?
No.
Okay. Shit, I don't know.
Mull it over. You've a week to mull it over.
Okay, so there's a link between Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, Baba O'Reilly by The Who,
Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, David Bowie, Space Oddity, and Blur, Song 2.
Okay, there's a link between all greatest hits of the 80s and 90s. Now that's what I call music 1995. Is that what it was?
No.
Oh, damn. That was a good guess.
That was a good guess. It wasn't bad. They're all music.
Yeah, they're all songs. That's the thing.
You have a week to think about it. Maybe put your answers in the comments if you get it.
Okay.
But, I'll give the answer next week.
Let's do it this way, actually. If people can guess the answer correctly, think they know the answer, DM Keith on Instagram.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, folks, there's a That Chapter Podcast Instagram. This is That Chapter Pod on Instagram, and it only follows you and me.
Yeah. You'll find us, yeah.
K for Keith, I think is your username.
Yeah.
So DM him with your answer, and how about if it's correct, I'll send you a That Chapter hat.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. I'll send you a That Chapter baseball
incentive.
Cap.
There we go.
Yeah, that's fun. That's
that
a good
is fun.
idea. Folks, I have no idea what the answer is, but I'm interested. All right, if anybody gets it right, you get a free hat, and then Keith will. But you have to send the answer in before the next episode comes out.
Yes.
All right. Okie dokie. Well, speaking of this episode and the next one, it's a two-parter. We are doing a two-parter, folks, for you now. This is a part one. This story is just so insane. It has to be in two parts. Doing a 45-minute episode as usual like that does not do this story justice, like, at all. This story is crazy. It's a movie come to life.
Yes. Oh, literally, yeah.
It's basically Black Hawk Down crossed with Heat.
Yes.
It's one big long action scene. Keith, you actually, just before we started recording, literally about 5 minutes ago, Keith, Malibu Mike hasn't struck in a while. I will make my triumphant return. But Dirty Keith's movie reviews, Heat had thoughts on Heat, because before we started recording, we did mention this was like Heat.
Yeah. So, like, part of my research for this was I watched Heat.
Yeah.
But after watching it, I will say the action scenes are amazing in it. But the movie's way too long. It gives a lot of backstory to a lot of characters and going into, like, their personal lives and their relationships. Don't need that. Cut all of that out.
Have just more of Val Kilmer with his beautiful hair shooting guns.
More of that, please.
On the streets of LA or whatever.
If it had been a whole film just of that, it would have been quality.
Fair?
Just way too much backstory in all the characters. I don't need backstory.
Well, Keith, you know what the listeners say about you? You're harsh but fair. Alrighty. Well, folks, we're getting into it. Today's L1 is a little bit different than the usual stories we tell here on the That Chapter podcast. Stories of serial killers and spooky ghost stories and cryptids and, old style dark history stories. Today is, it's honestly, just as I said, it's an action movie. It's a goddamn bank robbery. Well, a few, leading to one big one that went just about as wrong as it possibly could. Led by two men who were entirely unsympathetic. They are both deserved everything they got.
Big time, yep.
And they got everything because they caused maximum carnage in North Hollywood, California.
I can't wait to get into this. It's gonna be great.
And we shall. Alrighty then. So it began late on Friday, October 1st, 1993, at around 10:30 p.m. Sergeant Grimes, who was with the LAPD's undercover team, he focused on auto theft, and he spotted a brand spanking new Ford Thunderbird as it sped out of an intersection in Glendale, California. Grimes attempted to perform a traffic stop, only for the Thunderbird to continue on for about a mile towards the freeway on-ramp. But just then, as Grimes thought he would be in for a high-speed chase, the Thunderbird suddenly decelerated and rolled to a stop. Grimes approached the front of this car, the Thunderbird, along the passenger side, with one hand on his firearm. Now, inside that car, the Thunderbird were two large men. The 230-pound, 6-foot Larry Eugene Phillips Jr., aka Phillips, in the driver's seat, and the almost 300-pound, 6'3" Decibel Stefan Emilian Mazzarano, aka Emil, in the passenger seat. When Grimes asked driver Phillips for his name, however, Phillips gave his half-brother's name, Dennis Franks, instead. He then told Sergeant Grimes that he'd left his license at home, and worse yet, he'd hesitated when Grimes asked for his address.
Old Grimey, he was suspicious, and he asked who the car belonged to. Now, Emil told him it was Phillips' mother's car. However, the Thunderbird was actually an airport rental. Now, Grimes, he knew immediately that Emil was lying because he'd already run the plate before he even got out of his car.
So not off for a great start here when you're lying to the police and he knows you're lying and you're caught speeding and he believes you probably stole this car.
Yeah, right.
So Sergeant Grimes, he got the driver, Phillips, to get out and he patted him down. And he found a Glock 17 with a 33-round extended magazine. As Grimes began to back up where he could cover both suspects, he radioed for help. Meanwhile, inside the car, Emil had thrown his Colt 45 under his seat in the front of the Thunderbird. Backup arrived and the men were taken into custody. But that was far from the end of it. When a search of the Thunderbird revealed Emil's Colt under the passenger seat, no one was surprised. His pal had just been found with a 33-round Glock in his waistband, after all, so they knew these guys were likely up to no good. What did surprise the police, however, was a combination of an entire arsenal in the rest of that Thunderbird. In addition to the Colt, there was another pistol, 2 rifles, and 1,649 rounds for an AK-47, 967 9mm hollow points, 357 45 hollow points, 2 IEDs, 6 smoke bombs, a gas mask, body armor, 2 police scanners with earpieces, sunglasses, gloves, wigs, ski masks, a stopwatch, 2 cans of grey studio hair color, 3 different driver's licenses, and more than $1,500 in a grey plastic bag from Sears.
So that's a few things.
Yeah, just a few things, folks. Basically, they had an entire armory. These guys are going to do some bad shit.
Oh, yeah.
Bad shit for sure. Now, initially, both Phillips and Emil were held in the cells at Glendale PD. They were eventually transferred, though, to LA County Jail. Now, despite being caught with their robbery getaway kit, I mean, that's the only explanation for what they had.
Oh, what else would they be doing?
They're clearly going to rob somebody and blow the shit out of shit.
They were lucky to catch them.
Yeah, very lucky to catch them. They nipped this shit in the bud. However, Emil and Phillips, they ultimately only served 180 days in jail combined. The reason was simply bad timing.
Right.
The traffic stop happened at 10:30 p.m. Now, the boys were very probably going to rob a bank, but it's 10:30 p.m. The banks were all closed, so you're not going to rob jack shit.
Yeah.
And that was enough on its own to destroy most potential charges in court. Because although you could say they're going to do some bad shit at this, you don't know for sure what they're going to do.
Yeah,
There's nothing that's going to stand up in court.
Yeah, they haven't really done anything yet.
Yeah, exactly. Other than probably like having some of these guns as illegal, but they did their days in jail and nothing else happened.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on you though.
Well, they didn't actually.
No, they didn't.
Folks.
They should have.
This traffic stop was the nip it in the bud moment. They completely missed.
Yeah, it was so close, so close. Now, Phillips and Emil, so they had met 4 years before the traffic stop, back in '89 at Gold's Gym in Venice. After initially bonding over their mutual love of muscles, the lads, they eventually realised that they had other niche interests in common too. Those interests would accumulate 2 years later in the middle of summer 1995.
It was at the height of midday, June 14th, 1995. This is almost 2 years since that first traffic stop. It was a beautiful Wednesday in California, and 51-year-old Texas native and former aerospace engineer Herman Cook, along with his driver, 53-year-old Felipe Cortez, were doing their usual collection rounds in their armored Ford F700 Brinks truck. Riding in the hopper seat, it was Cook's job to get out of the van and collect the bags full of cash from the bank that was on their route. And at 12:30, Cook was returning to the van after completing a regular collection from a Bank of America branch on Roscoe Boulevard, when he realized he was the target of an ambush. Both Cortez and Cook exchanged fire with the robbers, but their 9mm pistols were no match for the well-armed thieves and their long rifles. Now, for non-gun folks, it's going to be handy going forward. Basically, just to know that despite what you see in movies all the time, pistols, they are wildly inaccurate. You ain't doing any fucking John Wick headshots like you see in the movies. That doesn't do shit.
Like, I guess, very simplified way of it is, so the barrel has grooves called rifling cut into it. These cause the bullets to spin, which is what keeps the bullet on a straight path. So basically, the more time the bullet is in contact with the grooves, the tighter the spin is. Also, the longer time in the barrel allows more time for the powder and the bullet to burn. So, yeah.
Exactly. That's why sniper rifles, you'll see, are like these, sharpshooter rifles. They tend to have really, really long barrels.
Yeah.
Simply, they're just more accurate. They go further and they're more on the money. So basically, if you've got a pistol and you want to survive a gunfight against someone who has a rifle, drop the pistol and fucking start running. Is your best bet to survive that. Now, the exchange outside this Bank of America between these armed robbers and the armored car, it was short, but violent. Cars parked in the surrounding gas stations sped away from the gunfire as the robbers screamed orders at the guards, Cooks and Cortez, and fired into their armored Brinks van. Not only did the thieves' rounds easily rip through the bullet-resistant glass, they found even better cover for themselves behind a concrete barrier. So basically, these robbers were totally hidden and had a clear view of what they were shooting at. Then, as soon as the chaos began, it was over. The robbers, and soon-to-be murderers, calmly drove away from the scene of the crime in a dark Chevy. Witnesses stood and crouched in shock. The thieves escaped with a bag of cash torn from Cook's hands as he lay bleeding out from several gunshot wounds to his stomach and abdomen. The score wasn't anything spectacular, certainly not worth a man's life. As Cortez was airlifted, the doomed Herman Cook was driven by ambulance to hospital. where he would pass away a few hours later. Witnesses told investigators and reporters that the robbers had screamed at them to get down and don't look. Despite many witnesses, descriptions of the men had varied wildly from one to another. Some said that one of the guys was black, others Hispanic. Yet both robbers had been covered head to toe, including balaclavas. Pretty much the only thing detectives knew for sure was that they were looking for 2 men, end of list. Now, whether or not the robbers had set out to get into a shootout or no that day, they had targeted a truck at the busiest time of the day in a popular and well-used area, where they fired dozens of rounds. So it was only true luck that more people weren't killed. These were dangerous men who weren't afraid. They were brazen, doing this in daylight, armored truck, surrounded by people. They didn't give a shit. Nicknamed the AK-47 Bandits by police and the media chasing them from then on.
Cool name.
Better than the Wet Bandits, yeah. AK-47. I would actually, that's a cool name. I could fuck with it.
Yeah, I could probably.
You should call me the AK-47 Bandit.
No.
Ass kissing 47.
That's pretty good. So, with nothing to go on, not even reliable eyewitness accounts, the only possible positive to take away from the day was the faint hope that the big score had been enough to retire the men from, risking their lives again. Unfortunately, not only was it not a substantial payday, but even if it had been, that's simply they just weren't cut from that cloth. They were in it for the thrill.
They were in it for the thrill. Yeah, they weren't going to stop no matter what. As you'll see, folks, these are all the little robberies leading up to the big one.
Oh, yeah.
Which we will get to. It was 1 year later, shortly before 10 a.m. on Thursday, May 2nd, 1996, chaos erupted at the Bank of America in Van Nuys when 2 heavily armed men burst through the south side doors. The bank's Brinks drop-off, the armored car drop-off for that day, was originally scheduled for midday, but it had been changed at the last minute to come early at 8:30 a.m. instead. The most likely way the robbers knew this, bursting in at 10 a.m., was because they'd been watching for the delivery and staking the branch out. When they saw the van arrive early, they received their gear from a nearby stash house and returned to commit the robbery. Though the also very real possibility remains that they may have had an insider too, but who knows? If that's true, they've never really come forward.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think they're just watching the place.
Yeah. Now, these men who burst into the bank, they appear to be professionals, and they appear to know exactly what they are doing. In spite of what you might assume, professional bank robberies are not usually calm and quiet. They are actually defined by being loud, violent, and aggressive, which is what I would have assumed. I probably wouldn't have assumed they were calm and quiet.
I like when I think of bank robbers, I think of like Ocean's 11, the gentleman robbers.
No, I think of like Jesse James bursting in and shooting a revolver into the air with a bandana just over their mouth.
I suppose if I'm thinking old school, like a Western, yeah, that's what I think of. But I guess
that's what I think of when I think of a bank robbery.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. Shut up.
It's okay to think different things.
No, it's not. You agree with me. That's how this podcast works, Keith. Now, being loud, violent, and aggressive were all things that the Van Nuys robbery was. Both workers and clientele of the bank barely had time to register the 2 very large men holding AK-style rifles before the men began screaming orders at them. Everybody drop to the fucking ground. Don't move. If you get up, I'll kill you. Get on the fucking floor. Keith, you can get off the floor, Keith.
Oh, sorry,
I wasn't shouting at you.
Sorry.
Those orders were followed by the deafening sound of bullets. As one of the men took the branch manager to the vault with a rifle pressed into his ribs, his accomplice walked among the other staff and customers, calmly kicking handbags out of reach of their owners. Next, the man holding the manager ordered the other tellers to follow them to the vault with their keys ready. With access to the vault gained, the more active of the 2 robbers told the tellers and the manager that he knew they just had a delivery from Brinks and to open all the drawers containing the large denomination bills.
Now, if it wasn't already very obvious that these weren't your average chancers or drugged out lunatics, the thieves proved their professionalism when the manager attempted to stall them by opening the to-be-destroyed drawer. Basically soiled or spoiled cash that has got to the point where it needs to be taken out of circulation. So the robber noticed what she was up to right away, telling her not to give him that junk money. Hell, I'll take it.
I wouldn't mind that. I'll fucking sell David back together now. Once the drawers were open, the thief was free to grab as much as he could and stuff it into their bags. Meanwhile, his pal on the bank floor was scooping cash from the teller's drawers into his own bag. With as much cash as they could carry, the 2 men then walked calmly out of the bank's south doors and then broke into a run towards their getaway car that had been sitting with its engine running throughout the robbery. All in all, it lasted only 6 minutes, and it netted the robbers over $750,000. That was $1,408.67 per second.
That's crazy.
The robbery had been a stunning success by pretty much all metrics. Investigators had pretty much nothing to go on outside of knowing that they were looking for, once again, 2 large men that were extremely heavily armed. The only upside for authorities was that nobody had been killed or injured this time. That and the score being once again so big, it was all but unimaginable that the robbers would be looking to strike again. Basically what had happened in the previous robbery of the armored truck when they killed Herman Cook. The police were like, hopefully they'll be happy with this and they won't strike again, which is literally like hoping that a serial killer, I hope he's happy and he's killed enough people and he won't strike again. It's like, what?
Let's all go home.
What logic is that?
It's so dumb.
Yeah. The last thing detectives expected was another bank being hit less than a month later. It was Friday, May 31st, 1996. At 10:05 in the morning, just like the Van Nuys job, the men stormed through the Bank of America in Winnetka and announced their intentions with shouted orders and several gunshots. Once again, they identified the manager, separated her from the others before they forced her and the teller with another key to the vault to open cash drawers for them. Thanks to previous thefts now, earlier that year, likely these men's, their own thefts that they had been responsible for, the staff this time were more than rehearsed in what to do in the event of a robbery. The robber got more and more irate as the holdup progressed. He especially seemed to rage at the comparatively low amount of cash to what he expected. See, the robbers this time had made a miscalculation, thanks to seemingly mistaking a Brinks collection for a delivery. They had been expecting close to $2 million, when in reality, the bank was holding far, far less. The armored truck had been taking cash, not bringing cash to them. At one point, he even shouted that he knew they had more than $2 million, and that they'd just had a shipment in reference to the drop-off that had in fact been a pickup. In an attempt to get the manager to reveal the existence of a hidden cache of, cash, the robber in the vault fired a shot, but he realized it wouldn't make a difference. The petrified manager had given them all they had. Even though it wasn't the mammoth score they had been expecting, the bank robbery netted the thieves almost $800,000 in close to 7 minutes. I know that they were expecting $2 million, but that's still more than what they got 1 month earlier at another successful bank robbery.
I'm sure now they've had it filled.
Yeah, they definitely won't do it again now.
That's crazy though, 800,000 in 7 minutes. But despite hanging around longer than they planned to, they still got out of there and they made a pretty decent getaway, but not perfectly clean, mind you. So one civilian had overheard someone inside the bank shouting about a robbery. Then they spotted the getaway car tearing out a car park across the road. So they tried tailing it for a bit, but ultimately they just lost him, unfortunately. Also, a staff member actually hit the silent alarm not long after the lads walked in. Now, normally you'd have a squad car on top of that within minutes, but that day the cops were actually stretched pretty thin, so the response took a lot longer than it should have.
Almost at him.
These lads are pretty lucky.
Yeah, they are. I feel like that's the story of this. It's just they just kept pushing their luck. Much like you and the attitude you bring to this podcast, Keith.
Let's see what that ends.
I don't know what side of the bed you woke up this morning, but you're just nasty today. Now, the LAPD were no longer looking now for the AK-47 bandits. They deserved a name that better reflected their elevated professionalism and the risk that came with that. They were now known as the High Incident Bandits. And that is certainly what came next. What do you think, Keith?
That's a worse name.
Yeah, I agree. High Incident. It sounds like they're just stoners.
Yeah, right. We're the Hibs.
We're the Hibs. Yeah, nah.
We're the Hibs.
We're here to make you think about death and get sad and stuff.
Not for me.
AK-47 bandits, way cooler.
So, who were the Hibs, the High Incident Bandits? Well, born July 19th, 1966 in the town of Timișoara, Emil Mațăranu had grown up in Romania until his parents emigrated to California in 1974. Always an outsider, Emil was a victim of bullying about his weight throughout his school life. And honestly, folks, this is like one of those times when, bully him harder. I don't think we bullied him hard enough. Because it might have stopped him going off and doing what he was going to do.
He would have maybe had his fill of being bullied.
Now, Emil was far from a stupid person. His mother would later say that this caused himself to retreat into himself and become more insular. He was bullied and smart and knew his way around a gun. And worst of all, he was Romanian. I don't think we have many Romanian listeners there. Who knows?
Not anymore.
He did, however, find some sanctuary in computers and arcade games. After attending Pasadena High, Emil would earn himself a degree and qualify as an electrical engineer. A good income and an honest life was very possible for Emil. So what actually caused him to take such a different path into becoming one of the most notorious bank robbers of the 20th century? Still a matter for debate, even right now. Like, of the two people, we'll talk about Phillips in a second, but Phillips was the criminal, just a lifelong criminal. Bank robbery is not out of step. But Emil was like, he was smart, he knew computers, he was intelligent, he had a good career, he had a degree, everything was going for him. He was even Romanian. But you know what I mean? He had everything going for him, so why he got into the bank robbery? The leading theory is that Emil suffered from seizures. And it was actually probably some oinky fnoink in his brain went wrong.
Something misfired.
Yeah, he suffered seizures that required surgery, and after he left hospital early, most likely in an attempt to skip out on the hospital bill, Emil then spiraled into several drawn-out episodes of a deep depression. The whole ordeal, that led to the end of his marriage and a huge shift in his personality in general. What little impulse control he now had was gone, and it's very likely that he knew sooner or later he wouldn't be walking away from one of these robberies. But whenever it came, it just seemed like at this point, whatever was going on in his head, he did not particularly care.
What's interesting, so as part of his treatment, Emil had been prescribed the barbiturate phenobarbital, which both he and Larry Phillips would take moments before the robberies began in an effort to, calm their nerves. Which is kind of goes opposite what we were kind of saying. Like, if he's an adrenaline junkie, then he's going to take drugs to kind of calm the nerves.
Maybe he wants to rush, but if he's too hyped up, he'll can't
enjoy it.
He can't enjoy it, he's too shaky, he wants to be calm and in control, but
I bet.
I don't know. Frankly, I don't like the tone you're interrogating me on. I'm not a doctor.
But later, investigators, they would actually find that both men were using drugs that helped them to rein in that adrenaline response, to stay level and stay focused. Now, we're unsure exactly what else motivated them to keep robbing because it certainly wasn't desperation. Their own children and families will tell you that thanks to their successful robberies that they already had, they were far from poor. In fact, they were affluent, even flashy. Both men, they would spend frivolously and had lavish items.
I mean, in 1 month span, they successfully robbed 1.5 million between the two of them, which is pretty dang good. But of course, then if they're spending frivolously and lavishly and all that stuff, that 1.5 million, it's going to disappear pretty quick. I mean, have you seen rent in California, in LA? It's off the chain.
And he had that medical bill?
Well, he skipped out on that one. Those hospitals will find you.
They will find you. Maybe this is like a Breaking Bad situation.
Oh, Keith, you nailed it.
Yeah, right.
I think. Well done. So Larry Phillips, by the way, his partner in crime, he was born September 20th, 1970. And he was very different to Emil. I mean, they had met at a Gold's Gym, right? In 89 or something?
Yeah.
Both working out, but that's the only thing that can link them. They just were very, very different people. He was an established criminal before he ever met Emil, having a long rap sheet related to theft, but by no means anything like the levels of violence he'd later employ when they partnered up and they made each other worse. Though he'd first felt a lawman's grip on his collar earlier the same year he met Emil, on that occasion he was being picked up for stealing $400 worth of merch, including 2 suits from a Sears store. Phillips, he also had an established history of running real estate scams, but nothing like armed robbery with full-on tactical body armor and various military-style assault rifles and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, just a few scammeroonies.
Unlike his partner, there's no medical issue to indicate why he ended up in the situation that he did. He was simply a bit of a psychopath who just kept pushing it and pushing it. When it came time to finally throw down, Phillips was the one to choose to fight for the pair of them. Emil was the type to go through a range of reactions, probably because he was more intelligent. More intelligent people tend to think things through. First freezing, then choosing inaction, fighting, fleeing, back to fighting again, before finally surrendering. But Phillips, on the other hand, when he was on the warpath, he never took his finger off the gun trigger. Now, thanks to the preceding robberies we all just went through and several other factors, we do know that the coming shootout was never what they intended, but they were happy to go through with it.
Yeah.
So what exactly started the Phillips and Emil spree hasn't been nailed on. 3 months prior to that traffic stop back in 1993, they in fact may have well carried out their first heist even earlier than the ones we went through. On July 20th in 1993, 2 men hit an armored truck outside a First Bank branch in Colorado. Now, it's not certain, and again, this is Colorado, while all their other bank robberies took place in LA, but it is likely that this was Phillips and Emil's first full run out, or trial run, at least. Authorities are not even certain how many robberies and raids can be attributed to the two bandits. The only people, though, who could answer that question with, well, some kind of certainty came to an end in the gunfight of all gunfights, folks, in North Hollywood. It was February 28th, 1997. 9 months since the last bank robbery, and it was 9:01 a.m. Phillips and Emil sat in a car outside a Bank of America branch in North Hollywood. Passers-by paid no attention to the 1987 Chevy Celebrity or its occupants. The single-story building that housed branch 384 of Bank of America lay in the middle of an almost 1.5-acre site. To the north and south of the bank were the branch's 2 car parks. To the east was a 4-foot-high cinder block wall with backyards to family homes on the opposite side. To the west, the always busy 4-lane highway, Laurel Canyon Boulevard. And directly across, on the other side of Laurel Canyon Boulevard, was the large car park belonging to the Valley Plaza Shopping Center, and then the actual shopping center plaza itself. This was not an isolated area. And in 1997, at the time of the robbery, the plaza itself was home to several small buildings. You got a 4-lane road there, you got a big shopping center, you got houses, two car parks for this bank.
Yep.
Busy place.
So now we're at the plaza. 2 men, Phillips and Emil, they pull in and they just sit there nearly 2 full minutes before they even get out of the car and head for the bank doors. Now that little decision ends up being the most important one of the entire story, because if they'd walked in a minute earlier or a minute later, there's a good chance everything that happens next goes completely differently for everyone.
Exactly, because as they walked from their car to the bank at that precise moment, who happens to drive by on Laurel Canyon Boulevard?
Who? Tell me.
Of all people, the freaking cops.
Oh, the popo.
As Phillips and Emil walked over, they failed to notice the 2 officers traveling southbound on Laurel Canyon Boulevard in their LAPD patrol cruiser. But the driver, Officer Perello, didn't fail to notice them. Now, Perello was only 18 months into his LAPD career, and these 2 lads, Phillips and Emil, were far from inconspicuous as they walked the 30 feet between the car and the bank's northeast entrance. Immediately, the officers in the car realized that this was a 211, or an armed robbery. With how Phillips and Emil were dressed, there's nothing else it could be. They were dressed head to toe in full-on body armor. So along with Perello was a 9-year veteran, Officer Farrell. He sat in the passenger seat. Neither Perello nor Farrell could quite believe their eyes as the 2 heavily armed men disappeared from view as they entered the bank. As Perello pulled up behind a semi-truck, Farrell immediately grabbed the radio and called in the situation. 15A43 requesting assistance. We have a possible 211 in progress at the Bank of America, Laurel Canyon.
There was also one of the 2 security guards. He was patrolling the southern parking lot as Phillips and Emil entered. The other was inside and he saw the robbers enter. But he tried to get his colleague on the radio telling him to, stay clear and call the cops. But unfortunately, the message just didn't go through.
Just as Phillips and Emil entered the bank, a 32-year-old customer who just stopped in to deposit a check was leaving. The men bumped into each other, and the customer was forced back into the bank by the human tank that was Emil with the words, "Okay, motherfucker, let's go." Inside, the job was on. Outside, Officers Farrell and Perello were anticipating what would happen first. Either their backup arrives or the robbers exit the bank. That tiny altercation in the doorway was enough for the teller at the window to catch sight of the robbers, and realizing what was about to happen, she hit the deck and pressed the emergency alarm. The announcement and orders came from Emil to hit the deck, and was followed moments later by a volley of shots from the men's rifles. In the bank's safety deposit box room, the disturbance was heard by a bank worker and 4 customers, and all 5 of them froze on the spot, unsure of what to do, or what was even happening outside. The rounds inside the bank continued to be fired off as Phillips and Emil rounded up staff and customers, noting where the now prone security guard was lying.
Now, if there's any illusion of Phillips and Emil being some sort of Robin Hood-style gentleman robbers, Emil did his best to break it by striking a 79-year-old customer across the face, knocking her to the ground when she failed to get down on the floor as quick as he liked.
They were not good people, folks. Sometimes people romanticize bank robbers and, all these kind of guys.
Yeah. Not these guys.
Not these guys.
No.
They smashed in an old lady's face because she didn't get on the ground quick enough. So, not great.
No, they're assholes.
So with the security placated, all that stood between Emil and the teller section was a 1 1/4 inch thick sheet of bullet-resistant glass. A single burst from Emil's rifle and a stiff boot that was more than enough to shatter through the barrier and gain unfettered access. As he entered the restricted area, Emil called out, "Get the money or we will kill you." All the while, Phillips patrolled and policed the public between the exits and the teller's section. Branch Assistant Manager John Villagrana knew the game, and the best chance for everybody in the bank to survive, comply with what Emil and Phillips want. Bravely, he stepped forward when Emil ordered the vault to be opened. Now, despite Villagrana's complete compliance, as Emil walked him to get to the second set of keys to the vault, Emil, once again, much like they did with the old lady, felt the need to double down on make sure everybody knew who was running the show, and he smashed the assistant manager's head with the stock of his rifle. Now, while all this was going on in the bank, less than a minute had passed, but officers from the LAPD's North Hollywood division were already jumping into their patrol cars and racing towards the Bank of America. I mean, as we went through, they had robbed quite a lot of banks in the lead up for over, a couple of years.
Yep.
So the LAPD were like, fucking, it's go time, baby.
Yeah, let's get them.
Immediately outside the bank, though, the second security guard almost entered the bank's southwestern entrance before the sound of Phillips and Emil yelling orders suddenly hit him. The guard and customers outside, they smartly turned and ran, saying, "I am not fucking going into that bank. That sounds like a awful idea." And they were soon met by officers who were fast building a boundary around the bank and who guided the security guard and others to what should have been safety. But quickly, folks, in this story, you'll realize that the people inside the bank were the safest people as the story goes on.
Yeah. So around the same time that the cops were all running around surrounding the building, creating a perimeter, Emil, he finds 5 people down in the safety deposit room and orders them out up to the main floor with the rest. And just to make the point that he's there to kick names and lick ass, he fires another shot of rounds into the ceiling. Now, at this stage, the lads have control of the place. More than 30 customers and staff, all watching these two lunatics strut around like they own the goddamn place. Phillips, he stays on guard, pacing the captives, while Emil heads off to scoop up what he thinks is going to be their biggest payday yet. Except, here's the problem. After a run of violent takeover robberies in the area...
Who did that, I wonder?
Who did that?
Repeat the name.
Banks had changed how they did cash deliveries. Less money on site, just in case they got hit. And Phillips and Emil were about to find that out the hard way.
They were, you might say, Phillips and Emil were victims of their own success.
Yeah.
Just 126 seconds after Officer Farrell's first 211 call went out over the radio, Detective Angelus and Krulak were some of the first to reach to the scene and quickly began clearing out the potential line of fire. Between them, the officers on the outside were too busy forming a perimeter to think too much about what they might be going up against, what they might be about to face. As far as they were aware, this was just another standard holdup. At most, they were looking at a couple of guys inside the bank robbing it with pistols, maybe big-ass pistols, but nothing crazy, nothing the police couldn't handle. They had absolutely no idea just how outgunned they were about to be. All they could do was simply follow protocol and evacuate as many civilians as possible from the surrounding area and cut off as many potential points of escape as they could. Seconds after Detectives Angelus and Krulak had arrived, 16-year-old LAPD veteran Sergeant Larry Dean Haynes, who went by Dean, he arrived and used his cruiser to block the southbound lane of a nearby intersection. Almost immediately, he was approached by several members of the public trying to inform him of what was happening in the bank. You don't say! I just decided to block this intersection for no reason at all. As Sergeant Dean told the members of the public to get out of the area, his attention was suddenly snapped back to the bank's entrance. Someone had opened the door and appeared to be looking out of the bank. That someone was Larry Phillips.
Now, Phillips, he had noticed something seemed off outside the bank. This was a very busy area in the middle of the morning, and suddenly everything had gone silent. So he stepped outside the front and had a quick look around, and that's when he spotted Sergeant Dean and the patrol car. And in that moment, he knew what's coming. This isn't a clean walkout anymore. This is going to be a fight.
Some shit might go down.
But he didn't flinch, he didn't panic, there was no hesitation. He just turned around and strolled back into the bank. maybe those barbiturates, they help him keep the cool head.
Or maybe he thought he was dreaming, I gotta slow down these barbiturates. I'm hallucinating.
We're really kicking in now. But nonetheless, he was fully ready to shoot his way out. Now, would he have played it the exact same way if he had known just how many officers were stacking up outside waiting for him? That's a different question, but I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I kind of got a feeling that although they never really planned to get into a gunfight, when they saw they were surrounded, they were probably like, fucking hell yeah. Yeah, it's go time, baby.
This is what I brought the guns for.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get my fill.
As Phillips returned to the bank floor and continued screaming orders mixed with threats at the petrified customers and staff, officers continued to gather outside, aiming their guns at those bank doors. In the vault, Emil, as bank manager Villagrana, followed orders and had opened the dozens of boxes, separating the cash into smaller amounts. Emil was only just discovering that there was cash in the vault. Yes, there was, but nowhere near the millions of dollars they had expected. Now, on the floor, Phillips continued to keep the captives under control, even following his partner's earlier lead by smashing a customer in the side of the head because they had dared to look to the side and not directly at the floor for a brief second. Phillips also began preparing for the next step in the holdup. Walking over to the prone security guard, he put his foot on the guard's neck and told him, "If you move, motherfucker, I will kill you. When I tell you, I want you to move all these people to the vault." The guard nodded in agreement. As Phillips walked away, he shouted, "Nobody look at me, or I will kill you." Several of the officers awaiting the thieves heard the shots, unaware of where those bullets ended up. Now, Phillips and Emil, they were only shooting at the ceiling, but for all the police knew, they were executing everybody inside that bank. They could be awaiting a massacre.
Yeah,
For all they knew. All the while, more officers continued to stream toward the danger with the full light and sound show going. Officer Brentlinger, he arrived next, using his car to close the entrance to the bank's northern parking lot. He had arrived just in time to hear the latest burst of fire coming from inside the bank. He also clocked something terrifying, and he was the first to notice it. See, the gunfire wasn't the usual tap, tap, tap of semi-auto pistols, but he heard the rapid rat-tat-tat of automatics. That was like a full auto rifle. They had no idea that the robbers had this kind of guns with them. They're, as we were saying, earlier, they expected them to be robbing just with 9mm pistols.
Yeah.
But now they could hear full-on automatic rifles inside. Officer Brentlinger knew his cruiser wasn't enough cover against the kind of firepower coming his way. He ditched his car in favor of the cinder block and concrete barrier to the east of the bank. Police were now covering all sides of the building.
It's mad that this is all thanks to the simple twist of fate where two officers just happened to see them walking into the bank at that exact time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
But because of this, the police response had also, so the time had taken far less than the 8 minutes that Phillips and Emil had expected.
Exactly. So they were not expecting shit to be going as wrong as it was about to, basically.
Right,
Back in the vault, Emil was raging at the apparent lack of cash. At one point, even throwing a temper tantrum and unleashing hell on one of the boxes in the form of a hail of bullets that destroyed all the cash inside. Now, despite branch manager Villagrana's attempts to explain that the bank hadn't received its main delivery for the day, it did little to calm Emil, who at one point had the muzzle of his rifle pointed at Villagrana as he screamed for more cash. In the end, though, Emil had the terrified and now deafened assistant manager load up a large black hold all with all of the cash that was available. Now, the fury clearly blinded Emil, as he did not spot the multiple die packs that were also loaded into the bag, along with the loot. Now, in total, the score was just $303,305. That's very hard to say, by the way.
Literally.
But it was, it was over $300,000. That was less than half of each of their previous jobs. Even that was useless because Emil never found the die packs that the bank manager had inserted into the bag. So ultimately, any cash that left the bank would be rendered useless as soon as it moved beyond the 6-foot boundary that triggered the exploding packs to ruin the stolen bills. So even if they had managed to get away from this, they would have walked away with nothing.
Yeah. It's mad like that with the banks. So, because the insurance will cover whatever gets robbed, and the bank workers have been told, just do what you're told. But if you can, sneak this in.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's not doing what I'm told.
Yeah, exactly. You might get shot, but don't worry. So, with the cash in the bag, it was time to go. But not before Phillips gave the guard the go-ahead to move people into the vault. Little did they know, they were about to be probably the only safe people in North Hollywood, with several inches of steel between them and the chaos that was about to ensue. which we will get to next week. All right, folks, stay tuned for the next episode, the North Hollywood Shootout. Shootout, that's the word. Part 2, which we will get to next week. There's going to be a lot of bullets. Yep. Basically, as soon as they set foot outside, there is one hell. Like, it's Black Hawk Down. They walk out into Black Hawk Down.
Like, how is this story? It's only starting to kick off.
Yeah. By the way, folks, this is a crazy story, and it was pretty much all documented by live news reporters in helicopters.
Yeah.
I've watched the footage of this multiple times. It's wild.
It's nuts. Yeah.
But there's basically, for all of this coming shootout, there was an eye in the sky of news reporters in helicopters, and it's crazy to see. So everything we're going to be going through from here on,
you can see it.
You can see it. What a time to be alive.
What an age to live in. I think they had a couple of reporters on the ground as well.
You can see they're like ducking and dodging as bullets are whizzing around.
Yeah, that's mad. Wild. Yeah.
And also stay tuned, folks, for the answer to Keith's
riddle
or whatever you call it.
That's
question.
It's a question. Yeah.
Did your friend get that up? So that was a question in the quiz.
Yeah.
Your friend got that right?
Lauren was the only person who got it out of the whole bar.
Wow.
I was like amazed by it. And she literally got it like the last second. And it got us 20 points.
Wow.
No, sorry. It got us 20 points, which got us a few free points.
Okay. You exchanged the points for pints.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
It's a good system.
All right, folks. Well, before part 2 goes live, if you think you know the answer, DM Dirty Keith on Instagram with your guess of what it is. If you get it correctly, you'll get a free baseball cap.
Yeah.
T's and C's apply.
All right, folks, thank you so much for listening to this whole episode of the Thatchapter podcast. And as you guys know, we have a brand new spanking episode of the podcast every Monday morning, and on Fridays you get the audio of a YouTube video. So look forward to that, you lucky dogs. And we will see you soon. But until then, please take care of each other and yourselves.
And I'll see you.
I love you, folks. Bye.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
But I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.